Where do we want to take this conversation? Do we want to talk about automation? Do we want to talk about the media, as Tony just suggested, that media are distorting perhaps what would be a more... I mean, it's kind of up to you. This is Talkaoke. It's up to you where you want to take this. What's that?
Perhaps responsibility.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, I point the finger at myself and saying,
What?
I don't do enough
Okay.
to put into process the aspirations that I have for the society that I want to live in.
Okay, so you've got a desire for society, but you feel you're not putting
but
you're not living.
I'm not living because I'm within the confines of a system that is the way that it is, but I definitely don't do as much as I should, and I don't do as much as I could, and I can easily blame a system, capitalism, whatever. I can blame a system all I want, but ultimately it's the responsibility of everyone within that system to change and want to change, and that's the problem, is that people don't want to change that much, really, because it's easier not to.
Are we practicing what we preach? A lot of us have been slagging off capitalism and its various guises, but are we actually... What's your name again?
Johnny.
Johnny's kind of saying we're not actually kind of living up to what we actually... what we want, what we desire in terms of a new society. Are we really practicing what we preach? Johnny says, come and get involved in this. John, come on, let's give him a round of applause. Yes. In you come. Yes, you can do it. There's a seat over there for the friend as well. So, mate, and we've got a couple of seats here for you two. Come on, in you come. So this is Talkaoke. It's a free-form talk show where you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Right now, we're kind of talking about sort of redesigning society. But Johnny's kind of saying we're saying all this stuff. We're not really doing what we say. We're not actually embodying some of the values that we're putting on the table. So that's the question at the moment. We're going to quickly do a round of names. Are you off, Kendrick? You can give us a final thought.
Might come back in a bit.
You can come back, okay.
So to go away and come back.
Of course, it's free, yeah.
Desperate for the people.
Okay. Oh well, yeah.
Can't lose the season.
No, you can leave. You can leave. It's no problem.
I'll put a drink down the season. I'll get you the pint.
Yeah, put your towel on the seat. Okay, so we've got Hannah, we've got Isabel. What's your name?
Sit down.
I'm Nick.
And
Oscar.
Andy.
Kieran.
Kieran.
Oh, Kieran, yeah.
What did you say?
I said Kieran, but I said it really weird first, so I said it
Okay.
properly.
Alright, okay, well I'm just going to sit with Kieran. Yep.
Damien.
Kate, and Johnny, and Andy, and
Alex.
And
Tom.
Okay, so where do we want to take this conversation? Do we want to run with this proposal? Are we actually really embodying the change that we want to see? Are we actually, living up to some of the things that it's quite easy to say on the table or in the pub about wanting to change things?
So I thought I'd ask Johnny, what kind of thing do you think you're not living up to?
Okay, let's hear a bit more about this.
Well,
But you've got like 12 therapists.
I'm still consuming.
Yeah.
I'm still consuming beer. I'm still consuming the things that keep the structure running the way that it's running.
But you can't not eat or drink, can you? That's okay to...
I'm not saying that, but it doesn't. You're like, okay, drunk 3 or 4 beers this evening, and I'm still contributing to the society that I'm in, and it's like, okay, if I really want to change a society, do I have to separate myself from it?
Okay, there's a lot of hands going up. Oscar was first.
All I'm basically saying, very short, is I think if you live in a capitalist society, you get a lot of shit if you're a socialist for living within a capitalist society. You just live within the means that you're given and the bounds that you have. That doesn't mean you're a bad socialist. It just means that you need to work to live. You need to buy things to drink and to eat.
4 pints of beer?
Yeah. Well, you do, but you also need to have a good time. You can't just be living in a hair shirt and just cutting yourself off from society. That doesn't help anyone.
Right. So you do need to drink 4 pints of beer.
Yeah.
Kieran. Oh, Hannah?
This sounds silly, but it is associated. But there's this comedian called Cameron Esposito in America, and she spends half her time on Twitter having to defend herself about that, saying, well, look, I do still need to pay my rent, I do still need to eat, but then when I can, so she just put out this entire set, so she's an artist, so that thing about art versus money, blah, blah, blah. So she put out a whole set, but that was, she invited people to give donations to make money for a charity. So she makes money in other ways, but then when she can, she uses that platform to create wealth for charities and things like that. So that's probably the compromise.
Okay, so at the moment we're talking about we've got Johnny over here who feels like he's a bad socialist because he's had 4 pints of beer and he's consuming. Can we get involved in this? We have got. Kieran.
I would just say fuck charity. It's a failure of the state and our society that we have these like gaps that. Because I think philanthropy is like a cop out for the rich. It's kind of like it's basically rich washing.
Is it kind of like?
But I would feel like even from like an ecological standpoint, all our problems are problems of like the vast colossus of our collective humanity.
Right.
So like at what point, we got to focus on like the levers and the angles that we as individuals can then like put some weight on, rather than feeling bad about individual choices. Because I feel like that's again like neoliberal dogma, kind of dividing us up into individuals who feel atomized and powerless.
So we shouldn't feel bad about consuming anything. We should just
you find the lever you want.
Find the leverage. Okay, yeah.
I mean, like, obviously don't go crazy, but like the environmental stuff, like there's this narrative, if we all recycle, we can fix it. But it's like, there are fucking oil companies and shit that are doing, like, all of us put together is like a quarter of the shit they're doing. And like, it's good to place responsibility on yourself to a point, but there's also a point where there are legitimately other people who we should be blaming. Let's go get out the guillotines and go for those fuckers.
Okay.
Don't actually execute anyone, but like, take their money.
Okay. Are we swallowing this narrative a kind of, in a way, an individualist narrative? It's what Kieran and Isabel are saying. We've got new faces to say, what's your name?
I'm Tom, yeah. I was actually just about to say exactly what she said. So I think sometimes there's a pressure, a liberal pressure to, as an individual, feel guilty and feel like it's your individual responsibility to separate yourself from the society and like recycle and get rid of your own guilt, rather than which kind of scapegoats a lot of the powers that be, which we need to be taking into account and that kind of thing. So
Anyway, so Andy, were you going to say something?
Yeah. I mean, it's all right for individuals to feel that they're bad socialists, but like you're not the CEO of Shell or McDonald's or anything like that bullshit, are you? You know what I mean? And it's right. I mean, we can only do so much as individuals. It's the system that's fucked.
Yeah.
But
some people are doing more than others, and surely we should want to do as much as we can.
Yeah, we should do as much as we can, but it's very easy to burn out as a socialist and think you're not doing enough. You know what I mean? Okay. And that cynicism. If we're to persuade other people that socialism is the way forward, we've got to overcome our own personal cynicism and just do what we can and pat ourselves on the back for doing what we can. Okay. You know what I mean?
So there's a pat on the back for you, John. Let's give him a round of applause as well. But are we suffering from socialist burnout? That's the and can we actually burn out as socialists? I'll come to you in a second, Isabel. I'm going to come over to Oscar. I mean, at what point do we? But is there the other side to this? We need to do something, surely. You're handing out some literature, so you're not feeling like you're not burning out as a socialist.
I think that if you have to say to someone, if you're going to be a socialist, you have to live in a hair shirt, you can't engage in capitalist society, that's not a way you build a popular movement.
Yeah.
There is no way you can get people on board if you say you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to be like a normal person, but also you can build a popular movement at the same time. You can't be saying you have to live as a hermit if you're a socialist. So I think you have to really engage in popular culture at the same time.
Okay, so you've got to engage in what you've got. Are you suffering from socialist burnout?
I stuck it out in the Labour Party under Blair and Brown, so if you can do that, you can do anything. Okay. We were waiting. We kept the little breachhead behind the enemy lines and allowed everyone else to come through once we made the breakthrough.
Okay, so you've got to be patient as well.
Exactly. And all you have to do is be determined and not give up.
Okay, so it's more about determination rather than recrimination. I think it's a message we're getting here. Okay, we've kind of solved that problem. So where do we go here?
Just going back to that thing about you asking, are we embodying, are we putting our, what do they say? Our money where our mouth is, or whatever it is.
I think the sort of Obama term is be the change that you want to see.
I've actually just moved up north, and I'm relatively new to activism, and I've kind of found it difficult to know which meetings to attend and which groups to go to. So I think something that for me would have been useful. I mean, maybe I'm not particularly enterprising, and I'm not putting myself in the right places, but I think visibility is really key. So groups making themselves visible to people who wouldn't ordinarily be politically active. And being inviting, obviously, like this atmosphere is incredibly inviting, and there's so many things I now want to do as a result of doing this. But he persuaded me to come to this, and I think
it's in a way it's about communicating that.
For sure.
Communicate your ideas to a wider.
And then that will make it easier for us all to embody whatever we want to.
I'm done. No. I had an idea. I was just gonna say that like spending money on mental health isn't like a luxury. Like I think people really in our society underestimate how important mental health is. Like it's the same as buying food. If you need to buy a chocolate bar to be relaxed, you shouldn't feel guilty about that because you're not donating to charity. Because if you have a mental breakdown, you're not getting shit done. I have experienced this. Go to the kitten cafe and spend 2 hours petting cats. It is a legitimate expense.
Okay, so we need to look after our minds and our mental well-being, and this, in a way, this whole cycle of guilt is almost a marketing ploy. I think it was what I'm picking up from the audience tonight. But where do we want to go with this? Okay, we've talked about that, and I think we've done that subject quite well. Andy,
I had one more comment on the subject. I did agree with one thing he said. That people don't want change, because every year the World Health Authority works out how much it would cost to clothe, medicate, house, educate, irrigate the world's and educate the world's poorest, and it's never more than 2 weeks of the defence budget of the 8 richest countries in the world. For a whole year, nobody could die of chickenpox or cholera or any of that. You know what I mean? If we stop buying guns to shoot each other, you know what I mean? Right. Just the top 8 countries.
Okay.
And if we gave a fuck enough about that, could effect change.
Okay.
But we don't.
Okay. So how do we get this defence budget spent on chickenpox or these other things that you mentioned? That's the question. Yeah. Okay, and who around the table has been wasting their money on guns and they could have spent it on food for starving children? Okay, I'll come to you.
So I completely agree with you. I would say that the one person that's tried to tackle this kind of like top-down kind of like how do we use like the world's resources the best, Buckminster Fuller, he invented peace gaming. I think like back in the 70s, he's the geodesic dome guy.
Yeah.
And he basically said divide the world's resources up into kind of like whatever and kind of like allocate it towards problems. So if you look at kind of like world hunger, we don't have a hunger problem, we have a waste problem and a distribution problem.
Right.
So it's kind of like we already have the material conditions to solve everything. Right. It's the lack of political will, lack of framing, and kind of like a lack of transparency around the people that benefit too much from the whatever. And that's probably our project, is identifying those.
I mean, okay, so Jack.
Unfortunately, we saw how effective that 350 million on the bus was to that Brexit vote. If we repackage, if you're talking about defence spending, if we repackage the Trident debate as we're spending 120 billion pounds on a well, exactly. If you put that on a bus, you did the math, not me. On a bus, if you that's a Cold War weapon system for 120 billion pounds. If actually you spell to the British people, and if we don't talk about, because I mean I agree, it's unprincipled to do that because it's not right to have a weapon system to kill people. But if we actually go to the British people and talk about money, because a lot of people do talk about, they understand the finance debate, and if we go, this is a lot of money that we could spend on schools, on your welfare, on education, all the rest of it. they would understand the debate a bit better, I think, than it would be better if we repackage the debate. On the 350 million for Brexit, bloody bar, we need to start taking up finance as a Labour issue.
Okay, so that could be put it on a bus, basically. Put it on a, whatever your message is, put it on a bus. We've learned that, at least from Boris Johnson.
So, do you know what the British military call the Trident missile system? They call it politicians' willy waving. So one of the great supporters would be the military, where they think let's at least spend some of the money, the rest of the stuff they can actually use, as opposed to posturing.
So what you're saying is to spend the money on guns rather than missiles. Okay. So, no, that's what this man over here is saying. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to come back to that in a second. Yeah. So what do people think? I mean, okay, Kieran has said quite rightly the resources exist for the whole world. You've said this as well, Andy. It's a question of distribution. It's a question of, but I mean, how do we make this happen? And why? If it's such an easy thing, why has it not happened?
It's incredibly easy to say, and it's absolutely right that globally you could distribute the resources for everyone to have everything. But it doesn't work on a global level. You have to do it on a national way first. So that's why I find it incredibly difficult when talking about European level as well. Yeah. It's really hard to construct a progressive movement across borders, and I've got any solution to it, by the way, before you all look at me. I just think it's incredibly depressing to think, how does it work across the European level? That's the only thing I've taken away from this debate today. That's the only downer.
I think we're getting sucked into a kind of EU versus national debate. I feel that's fine, it's up to you. My job in the middle.
I'd like to know if anyone has an answer for international progressive movement. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I haven't got an answer for that. No, I just want to take it back to, so you were saying you feel like a bad socialist because you were consuming. I just wonder what people think about the idea of a lot of people that self-proclaim socialists and actual socialists now arguing for two specific things. One is universal basic income, which is a big debate at the moment, and the other one is increased automation, and yeah, exactly. All right, I've come late to the party, but well. But my take is, with increased automation and a universal basic income, aren't we then, okay, we're giving people more time to be creative, but aren't we then just paying people to consume, ultimately?
Okay. So back to the same point about basic income. Yeah, I'm going to come to
very quickly. We're still going to consume things under a socialist system. It's not like consumption is inherently evil. You know, it's consumption under a capitalist system. So I don't know why, we should feel guilt from consumption per se is not what it's about, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I just want to say, you're using the word consumption, but you could use the word exchange, and I think that actually changes it slightly. Do you see what I mean? So in a connected society, we would exchange, absolutely. We'd exchange in relation to food and childcare and all kinds of stuff, but that's not the same as consumption. Consumption is some kind of separation from myself and other human beings, and the separation comes through money. That's what creates separation, and that's how it's done, and that's part of the issue, I think.
Okay, so it's more about this separation between what's produced and what's consumed than just this idea of exchange. Okay, all right.
I just think that's largely semantic. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, it's all the same thing, basically. I'm going to paraphrase that. Is it all the swings and roundabouts? We're talking about, I guess the main theme of tonight is sort of redesigning a socialist utopia, and that seems to be what people want to do around the table. Fair enough, and it's a good thing to do. But we're getting, is it through a universal basic income? Is it through some kind of change of values? That's been the main themes of tonight. Kieran?
So I've maybe like a framework that can address all that. So It's from Donut Economics by Kate Raworth. So you have like a hard limit to kind of.
Do you know what it is? 'Cause I never really
So you have like a hard limit to kind of like what you can grow, what you can consume, but you also have a hard ceiling for no one drops under that. So again, it's about like the redistribution in the right way. So it's kind of like you don't have like too much growth, but you don't have undergrowth.
Why is it in the shape of a donut?
Because there's a hole that no human should live in,
Right.
and there's a border that no human should go beyond. You're actually in the hole, so like we're outside it, but like it's defined by planetary boundaries. So it's like like it's environmentally conscious because like they push back regardless of how we push.
Okay.
So it's by preserving the conditions for human life and civilization, but also maintaining human dignity.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about do people join? We've got some free seats. The people that I was ignoring over there have now left. So we come and sit down, come and get involved. I promise not to ignore you. We're sort of talking about how I guess how to redesign. Is it down to the donut economics? Is it? Are we being? I think most people, Johnny, have said, don't feel bad about it, and I hope you feel better now. I hope you feel better.
But yeah, I'm understanding like, or at least some things are coming up when this discussion's going on. And it's like, what is stopping us from changing? And essentially, it's fear, right? It's fear of what comes from change, essentially. So within the confines of the system that we're in, what do we fear the most?
Okay. Oh, that's a very good question.
And will we from going deeply into that fear, maybe fear comes for me essentially of being, say, homeless, without money, without connections to people, without being alone, being separate from a society.
Okay.
And because of the huge structure of society that we're in, what confines us within that?
What I'm going to take from that, Johnny, is I'm just going to go with the first question you asked: is what is stopping us from change? And also, is it fear? Is it something else? What is? Everyone around the tape. We've got some new faces. So we've got some. This is Talkaoke. Welcome to Talkaoke. It's a freeform talk show. Moment we're talking about what is stopping us from change. We heard from Andy that it would just take 2 weeks of the world's richest country's defence budget to sort out all the need in the world. Simple. What is stopping us from changing? We know that the resources could be shared differently. What is stopping us? Is it fear? Is it something else? Give us a final thought if you're going to go. Final thought, or initial thought even.
I don't think it's fear. I think it's the Tories.
But are we scared of the Tories? No. Yes. So is it fear? Is it the Tories?
Hello. Ooh, hello. All right, Jonan. Jonan. Yeah, name is Jonan.
Yeah. What do you think's stopping us from changing?
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of fear from the Tories because we look at and think they're used to being in power. They've got the right. People look at that and they're scared of it and they feel that. I think it is leadership and vision and saying we are going to do this. Is one thing we're going to do. We're going to save the NHS. We're going to get rid of Alzheimer's. I think it's focus.
You're talking about kind of vision, really, aren't you?
Yeah, it's vision and focus. Yeah, it's rather than going too much like we can do everything. Vision and focus is what I would put out.
Damien?
So a couple of quick points. So one is that people form their opinions from what they're told.
Don't get distracted from your point.
So people form their opinions from the information that they get, and the information that most people get comes from media that is not telling us to be liberal and have free thought. We're told to just watch this shit, shut the fuck up, and do what you're told.
Okay.
So that's one point. The other point I was going to make was just that, and this is a bit of a curveball, so go with it or not, but there's kind of two time bombs that are going to make all of this irrelevant. One of them's climate change and one of them's AI, and they're going to transform the planet in the next couple of decades. Right. So any discussion around left or right, this or that, it's all futile.
Okay. So we're talking about this is Talkaoke. It's a freeform talk show. Right now we're talking about what is stopping us from change when we've got all the resources to solve the world's problems, but we don't change. Is it? Johnny says it's fear. Jonan says it's a lack of vision. Damien says it's all going to be irrelevant when the planet goes tits up. And that's where we are right now. There's a point over here.
I'm going to bow out after this, but I think there's a bit too much focus on what is preventing us from changing, because actually 5 years ago, a Jeremy Corbyn leadership was unthinkable. This was unthinkable. Everything that's going on here was unthinkable. So like, we should also pat ourselves on the back for like, we've enacted a tremendous amount of change very quickly, and it's going to keep changing, and I think we're doing pretty alright, you know.
Okay, so we are changing. Okay.
So what have been the changes, apart from within Momentum, within the Labour Party, within the Corbyn fandom, what have been the changes in the country that have been enacted in the past few years as a result of Corbyn and Momentum?
Okay.
I think the national debate has changed. Obviously Brexit's changed a lot, but let's be 3 years ago we were talking about strivers and scroungers and benefit scroungers, all the rest of it, and now we have none of that debate. Austerity is not on the agenda for even the mass media, which is against spending, because they are not now pumping that agenda forward. Now I think things have changed in terms of what we're allowed to talk about in terms of the media. So with that, I mean, obviously I agree with you. We're not in government, we can't change anything, but I think the national debate has changed as much as that might have to do with Brexit. So but I do think that the agenda's changed at least.
Okay.
I've got to go for a wee bit. Final thoughts. And I entirely agree with what you said, and there is massive change going on, but it is ultimately responsibility. Okay. And like there's no.
Give us a final thought before you go. Give us a final thought. What is stopping us from change? Sorry, Johnny.
I'm not sure. Like now.
Yeah.
I don't know, the neoliberal order that we have at the moment. I don't know.
I mean,
why did you join the table? I was the only woman sat here. And why did you then sit here? And then why did you then feel you had to leave or wanted to leave without speaking?
There's too many men like dominating this movement, I think, and dominating like everything. But I don't know. We need to make it a space that like more women get involved and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it seems like a lot of the conversation is dominated by men. It's quite uncomfortable. Like as sometimes it can be quite like difficult as like a woman coming in and stuff like to talk. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like.
Okay, so
Okay, you're spot on, my gal. Right, there is too many men in the conversation. When I go to Liverpool, is a socialist city. I've lived there for 10 years. I love this place. Everyone loves each other. But I tell you something, they're always saying, what can we do to engage more women? What can we do to engage more black people? What can we do to engage more disabled people? What can we do to engage more young people? I tell you what, put them on the top table. So I'm going to hand this microphone. I know, look at your skin colour and think about your position right now in society. Look at your gender, whether you identify by a gender, I'm respectable of that, and how you stand in society. Look at your ability and think about where you stand in society. Now I'm going to hand this microphone back to this well-spoken lady and let her give her opinion for the next subject, because we need to be hearing the opinions of women. We need to be hearing the opinions of black people. And when you get asked to be put on a stage, think about how many more people of your skin color, your ability, your background have had a platform to say something. So my new comrades, here's your position. Put your opinion out there. I'm telling you, this is your platform. I'm not giving it to you. You own it. Reclaim your space in society. Reclaim your space at this table. I tell you what, my last thing, before I pass this microphone to that lady, I challenge every man to stand up from this table and give it to a woman, black person, disabled person. Pull out the power!
Okay.
Where's the black people? What am I saying?
Well, I mean, I guess the question we would like. I would like to have more women around the table, but more of a diversity of people. For sure. Come and get involved in this. But I mean, do you think the debate will change when you've got less men kind of shouting about what they think, and how will it change?
Definitely, I think people will respect each other's voices better because women respect each other more than men. Men just like to hear the sound of their own voice.
So there's not enough listening going on. Whoops.
I think part of the problem that we can see here is even when men step away, women aren't stepping forward.
Okay.
So what are now the invisible barriers that are stopping women from coming forward? Like, why aren't you confident in your opinion to sit here and speak the same way that a man was? Why are you doubting yourself when you know just as much, often more, than a man would know?
Okay.
Why are you not confident to come and sit here? Why do you feel embarrassed, ashamed? Just like women should be able to feel they can speak, and men are taking up so much room.
Is that what it's about, though? I mean, it might just be that that women can't be asked to sit around a table just shouting stuff. It might not be about a fear or anyway. We start with
But that's absolutely not true. I think that the reason that like women don't come forward is purely because a confidence thing, and also if there's so many men dominating the debate all the time, all we see is trade union leaders being men, and a lot of the organising that we do, sometimes I'll be the only woman there and stuff. Sometimes it's just quite difficult to have the confidence to put yourself forward if all the time all you're seeing is men dominating the debate, men doing this and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So I do think it's a confidence thing.
And also, if you think about, I've been sat here for a while. I was the only woman sat here at one point, and my last contribution, one of the men actually told me it was semantics. That was and I wasn't being semantic. I was making an actual contribution, but that was what. And then I went quiet again.
Okay.
Well, just because I can't remember it right now, it doesn't mean that I don't know it. I know that it's a socialist thing. Okay, do you know clause 4 off by heart?
I know. Clause 4. What the fuck is it? Does anybody know?
Are you being serious? It's the basic socialist principle that was within the Labour Party historically and was taken out of the Labour Party. So the debate is to put it back in. And it's basically about the means of production. And it's about getting it back for us, so that the people who produce the stuff get to share in it. And have control of it. That is that.
Okay, but what do you think about this question? That are we actually explaining these things? You know, I didn't know what clause 4 was until today. People just don't know about this stuff, and we're by assuming that they.
Are you taking the piss? No, you individually saying you don't know what clause 4 was.
Well, I found out today because I asked somebody. Yeah. I found I'm just a travelling talker.
I just did. Were you not listening? Was that because I was a woman?
No, I'll tell you, what I can do is I can recap. It's about taking back the means of production, and that being part of the ethos of the Labour Party. That's what I got from you. There was a point over here. Let me just hang on, it's a bit tangled here.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm missing onto someone, but by class 4 we just mean the struggle of the working class against the capitalist class for the ownership of the means of production. Is that what we mean by class war? And that is what...
We're talking about clause 4.
Oh, clause 4! Sorry, because I was standing there, I was like, wait, what? Nobody knows about class war? What is that?
No, we're not talking
So, no, I don't know what clause 4 is. Can someone explain to me what clause 4 is, please? What is clause 4?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Okay, nobody knows. You see, nobody knows what clause 4 is, and everyone... Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but the point is, it's not whether anyone knows what clause 4 is. It's so much more than that. It's like lots of people don't know what lots of things is, and that's the point that we're trying to make.
Yeah. Okay. And what you're saying is that's fine. So not no. Okay.
I think Tribune have made a massive mistake on this first day with this headline.
Yeah.
Because if you're an old bastard like I am, you know what Clause 4 is. You know, it was a central tenet of the charter of the Labour Party that we own the means of production, that utilities are nationalised, rail's nationalised, you know, and Blair took it out and purged everybody who disagreed with that, you know what I mean? So for the trip,
so nationalising the industry.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And so everybody here who doesn't know it is a young person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as they said Clause 4, I knew. But the Tribune needs to appeal to young people.
Yeah.
That's the fucking main group we need to appeal
Is there
to.
a bit of a failure of communication?
Yeah.
And is there a connection between Clause 4 and Class 4? It seems to be.
What I'd say as someone who's disabled is it's a sort of double-edged sword, because on the one hand I feel people often speak down to me, but on the other hand you're judged by other people's standards. I think that's probably the same for other women and BAME people and LGBT people as well. So it's like you really need self-determination, because people either infantilize you or the whole issue, they don't understand your needs, basically. You do and think differently to how they would do and think.
Okay, final thought from this person. You're off. Have you got a final thought?
It's got to be good now.
I mean, you know, we've been talking a lot about, you know, how do we like open this up? How do we actually get people involved? And you made the point as well.
The basis of this is, as John McDonnell said earlier, political education. A lot of the schools aren't aware about what's really happening within their own community and within their own culture, and we're being pitted against each other. And I don't have any hate towards the people who read the Daily Mail and who read the Sun, because it is within their own culture. If your grandfather and your father read these papers, of course you're going to go along with it, and the emotive language and the advertising that they use is built to pit people against each other. What we need is to bring all of the working class and the minorities to understanding that the bottom line here is austerity, and the bottom line is the government policies against us.
Okay, let's get some final thoughts. She escaped, but you two haven't. Give us a final thought.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Make politics more accessible for people. I'm dyslexic. I can't read, and I often feel that, like, because I haven't read a certain book, I haven't read Marx, I haven't read whatever, that my opinions aren't as valid as someone who is well read. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, make it more accessible. Make people feel like they can have an opinion, even if they haven't read like a single book. Lived experiences. Like, I'm a socialist because of my lived experiences. Like, I think that that's valid, and I think that everyone should feel like that's as valid. Do you know what I mean? So let's make it more accessible.
My final thoughts would be that we should uplift women, whether they know what they're talking about or not. Our opinions are valid, and I don't know. Like me talking now is like really unconfident, and that's just an example of how women are made to feel. So I think the way that I'm speaking is an example of what I'm talking about.
I mean, from my point, I don't normally give my own opinion, but I'm sort of like at the end of my tether here. I've been doing this for 3 hours. But I actually sort of believe that not knowing what you're talking about is actually important, because then you're in a space of discovery. You're not rehearsing something that's been said 100 times. You're actually exploring new ideas, and you're exploring new concepts. So I think it's actually essential to not know what you're talking about, and someone else can help you out. Speaking of, does anyone want to do this job? I'm serious about this now, because otherwise this is gonna be ending pretty soon. You'll do it?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'd love to be in there.
My name's Mikey.
How did you get in there?
Just climbed over. Are we happy with Andy coming in? Do we want to change the gender agenda? Do we want to get a woman in the middle of the table?
Could ask Ash Starker. She's over there. Ash Starker.
She's in the bar at the front. Go and get Ash Starker. She'll be fucking sick.
Okay, well I'm here if she wants to jump in. The whole point of Talkaoke, this is all about what people want to do. It's not, we don't want to force anybody, but whoever wants to jump in the middle. It looks like Andy at the moment is going to jump in. Let's get. What I'll do is I'll demonstrate. We need to clear drinks away. This is a good space here. I'll demonstrate. I'll get out, and if you just want to follow me, just keep your legs together, spin around like so. That's my point.
Okay.
Okay, let's give Andy, keep it warm for Andy. Give him a big round of applause. But no, Andy, sit on this bit in the mid. Sit on the crack. Sit on the crack, yeah. And spin around. Right, let's keep it warm for What I do, Andy, I would suggest just get everybody's name and just find out what they want to talk about and take it from there. Okay. I'll give you this other mic as well. Say that in your pocket. Okay, say something.
Testing one,
yeah, I might turn you up. Sit down.
Okay.
Yeah, so just get everyone's name and go from there.
Okay. Hello, testing. You done it? Right. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Joe.
Joe.
Joe. I'm just really curious. Can you do like a full 360 on that chair? Can you show me? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Yes.
Can you do it a bit quicker?
Not really.
Okay, I'm satisfied.
Okay. What's your name again?
Kate.
Kate.
Bianca.
Jamil.
Kendrick.
Yeah.
Eleanor.
Stu. Matt.
Sarah.
And
I thought the idea of switching presenters was to have a female in the middle. What's happened? No, I'm just wondering. I went away for 5 minutes and I thought that's what we were doing. I just had enough. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yvonne.
So what is your name?
Yvonne.
Yeah. So what do we want to talk about? Has anybody got a subject they want to talk about right now? What's your name?
Oscar.
Give us a subject to talk about.
Oh shit.
He didn't. Hang on. He didn't even want to sit down. So just can we leave him for a little bit and then?
Well, you're very welcome, Oscar. Just listen and fit in when you can. So.
Hello, I would like to ask the table, we've all been here for a couple of days, what's everyone's favourite topic of discussion so far? We're here from Long Live South Bank and we were showing a film today about how you run I guess for us, like a short-term creative campaign. It's been 5 years in the making. We ran a campaign that got the largest amount of single objections to a planning application UK history, and we've been asking loads of people about how you run like grassroots campaigns. For us, we've been discussing it in discussions and panel discussions all day, and a lot of people have been talking about how you need to know exactly what you want from the get-go, and being based in your communities and having momentums, day-by-day run-throughs and communication. And I would like to ask everyone here, obviously we're from different places and different organisations, and how you like to focus your energy.
It's a brilliant question. Are you talking about the South Bank skate park?
Big up.
So, just give everybody at the table a bit of a history about what the campaign's all about. Hello?
I mean,
is that better? Okay.
The history is it was a place that was based on post-war politics, the Festival of Britain, and how we needed to renew the sense of civic pride and civic relationship in, how culture and the arts can uplift a nation, and how, just having an enjoyment together can. In the 70s, I'm 24, but the community that I represent and the community that I'm based in goes back to the 60s and the 70s. But we're lucky to have a culture that's long term. It's been there for time. But what do other people around the table think about their organisations that they represent?
So, community organising and building a movement, what should we use our energy on? Has anybody got any thoughts? Oh yeah, okay. So, community organising, building a movement, how do you create an effective campaign?
How do you get people to give a shit?
How do you get people to give a shit?
You tap into common things that we can commonly agree with, that commonly affect us, so we can start to see that we do give a shit about those things, and suddenly we actually find we want to talk about them, and before you know it, there's a conversation going. Actually, as one of the teachers said at John McDonnell's speech, you do that and then you get the fuck away, you stand back and you let people talk.
So how do we get people to engage? Anybody? How do we get people to engage?
A lot of people think that you have to tell people shocking things or quite negative things to get people to get involved, but actually people listen to positive things. That gets them engaged and that makes them want to contribute more positively. Do you see what I mean?
That's so true, because if people's kind of arguments are driven on the negative, it just means that whatever comes from that, whatever consequences, it always has the wrong energy. Whereas if it's positive, it means that only something good can come from it, right? It can only ever be good. You need to get like some kind of lovely little fire in your tummy, and that just like, if you pass on, I feel like positive energy kind of catches on a lot easier than negative energy, really. Everyone wants to be fucking happy. Everyone wants things to be better. Most people are just fucking struggling all the time. So just say like, this will improve. Do you feel shit? I feel shit as well. What if we try this? That might make it better. And that's where people are going to catch on.
I do feel that negative energy is so much more powerful though than positive energy. It's like, we had this conversation, why do people not talk to each other on the tube? And the reason why is because if you do talk to people, you get a nice warm fuzzy feeling, but if you don't, there's also a risk that they're absolute nutters and that you're encouraging some kind of like horrible crazy situation. So the fear is much stronger than the warm fuzzy feeling that you get.
So what is your name? Mikey. So Mikey says negative energy is more powerful than positive energy. What do we think to that?
Nah, mate, positive energy is far more better than negative energy, mate. Trust me. If you can get people to think that what you're doing is positive, if you try and convince someone of a negative opinion constantly, then they're going to think negatively. If you convince someone that like what the outcome of this is positive, then it's far more influential than like being like, oh, everything's shit. If you go like, everything could be really good, far more influential than really. Well, I have to keep talking about it.
Just to add to that, the human mind actually gets stimulated with positive facts, positive statistics, and it gets into the human mind quicker and more effectively, and it actually sparks action and positive reaction.
Yeah, I just think. I think that positive energy is really important, but I think it is also necessary to engage with the negative. And I think by engaging with the negative, you can then like collectively think about what it is that you want that's positive. So like thinking more like about the future and about how we can like organize ourselves to try and work out like what it is that we want. Like I think you were saying earlier about like whether you have to have like a direct ambition of like I want to achieve this, and I think it's more like listening to each other to be like what is possible, because at the moment I feel like generally we're really limited by like what society tells us we can achieve, and I feel like that is what I really want to do, is like get together to be like actually we deserve so much better than what we're given, and we can actually get together and collectively think about like a utopian like way better world. So yeah.
No, I was just thinking that I think the history of the Labour Party in the last few years and the victories of the Labour Party really speak to the fact that positive energy goes a long way, as in like I think lots of us probably access politics by coming from a place of anger and kind of like wanting to, you know, against something that we saw and horrified us and hurt us personally and hurt people around us. But then the success of Jeremy Corbyn, I think, has been that of offering a good, as in like, as you said, an utopia, a vision of something good, desirable, of a place of happiness that we can get to. And that, you know, that went a long way, I find. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that actually you've got to start from the negative, start from that place of anger, but unless you actually change the narrative into something positive, then you're really not really changing anything. You're just kind of against something. You need to bring people along with you, create a positive, futuristic imagination. That's going to make a much more appealing narrative that's going to get people much more engaged. You know, being negative is only going to get you so far. It's only going to attract so much attention for so long.
That made me think of social media and how so often people on social media, they do try and group together, they do try and put a positive message, and then someone will come and say something stupid or something will happen in the news and people will react to it. We can't help it, but we need to keep thinking to turn it around to the positive. You know, I've seen recently there's been so much reaction to stuff. We need to keep remembering this, the value of positive energy, positive thinking. It's not easy.
I think as well that you've got to really try and be mindful of what people actually care about and what affects them day to day. So I think this was the problem with like the Remain and Leave campaign, was that the Leave campaign actually did that, but they focused on the negative, whereas Remain, it was all about these kind of abstract concepts of like the economy will fail. Like your average Joe doesn't know what that means. They have no idea how that's actually going to affect them or like their dad or their kids. So that was where the Leave campaign were really fucking clever. They found what people cared about, but they like drilled it down, shit. So that was what people engaged with, because they could go, oh yeah, that will affect me, and that's why they voted the way they did, I think.
Yep. Thanks. I'm very cynical about a lot of things, but one of the things I always say to people is that I honestly believe a better world is possible. We're told so often that this is the only way we can live, that people are greedy at heart, and that it's within human nature to betray each other, and it's totally not. People just want to do good by each other or be left alone, and that's so often betrayed by the establishment that people find it easier to blame scapegoats or believe the lies that they're told. And if we start from the grassroots and move upwards, then we can change that. And I think we should connect on common ground, whether we're in agreement over the negative things or positive things. We can build up from what we agree on and move past what we don't.
Brilliant. Anybody else want to comment on that? I mean, the original question that sparked this discussion was from the guys trying to save their skate park. They've saved it. Brilliant. Yes, yeah. From a really fucking hostile council. And they asked how you build a creative campaign, so we can go to that conversation or we can stay with how to change the world.
I don't know, maybe it touches on both. Kind of think of a politics of pleasure, of enjoyment. I guess, so for example, what you said before is like, the main campaign was like, either you do this or the economy will fail. It's a politics of fear, it's a threat. As in like, counter that with the politics of pleasure. So I imagine like the way that you did that also was, I don't know anything about your campaigns, I'm imagining. But like, also by presenting that as a space of pleasure, of enjoyment, of, that kind of...
One of the things that we always like to do is turn everything into positive. Like if it was a planning application that we thought was bullshit, we had a jam and had bare music and had like everyone that we were friends with and everyone in the community coming together and celebrating that place. Everyone just like having a party, dancing and celebrating that, because that is what we found was most influential to like the politics, the media, the community, like public facing campaign of just being there to talk to everyone, to change their opinion one at a time. And if you can change one person's opinion, they might change 10 in return. And it's just like having that conversation and just being able to convince people to like see the real, like just like if you can see somebody having a smile on their face or just like having like fun with their mates and just being like, oh, that's bullshit, like that somebody frames something differently, no matter how like connected they are in the Evening Standard or whatnot, like just have fun with it and like convince people that like your whatever you want to do is fun and like benefits your community or whatever. Just you have to remain positive, because if you get negged down and whatever, you're just fucking gonna go into a trench warfare that might not be beneficial for everyone. Just this.
I just want to say, I think it's so important in campaigning to be able to have fun. Like you talk about abstract ideas, like no one's going to come out for an abstract idea of, okay, we've got to save this public service and this public service because it's important to, the whole country. Like people are going to come out and have fun because they want to skate, they want to eat, drink, be happy and whatever. And that's the same kind of thing with the Brexit debate. Like we were talking, Remain were talking during the debate about like the economy. Who benefits when the economy is good? The shareholders, the CEOs, they get richer. And what happens at the bottom? We don't get richer. Like we don't see the benefits of shareholders, And it like that's what we need to be doing. We need to be reaching out to people and talking to those people and letting them know what's in it for them. Even if it is just having a good time, having good food, like conversation, that's what we need to be doing, and that's how to build good campaigns. And I think specifically the Labour Party needs to be doing that more, needs to be doing that better. We can't just be asking people to come out and knock doors for us to protect abstract ideas that have nothing to do with people's everyday lives, We need to get people out having a good time and wanting to stand up for the Labour Party and the country,
I was just going to say, I think as well, I think you really have to like be careful to actually like ask people questions about why do you feel that way, because I feel like this is a bit of like a liberal problem, is that there's like a certain degree of snobbery around people that are a bit right or people that feel differently. They kind of shut them down straight away, whereas like they're alive, they have like life experiences that have caused them to think a certain way, so ask them why. Their opinion, like let's be honest, like we're all like a bit smug because we're all agreeing with each other, but their opinion matters just as much as ours because they're alive now as well. So just say like, why do you feel that way? What's happened to you that has made you think that? Don't just shut them down, because that just makes them more fucking angry. And that's why, right? And that's what's happened with like fucking World War II. That's why people like turned against the Jews, because their lives were shit and they had to fucking blame someone, right?
Right, you're new to the table. What's your name?
Oz. I just want to agree. I 100% agree. We keep on banging on about Remain, Leave. We need to understand why people voted Leave. Rational arguments about the economy don't work, because those people, the economy doesn't work for them. Even when it was good, it didn't work for them. And the fact is, they voted Leave regardless of whether the economy was good or not, because because it just doesn't work for them. We need to reimagine the way we think about the economy. We need to reimagine the way we think about growth. We need to get to past growth into degrowth. The fact is, we're living in a climate change world. Well, the fact is, we can't keep on growing in a world that has finite resources. We have to think about ways that we can create local economies, localism instead of globalization. Like, that is the only way forward. And then we can bring these people who are in these communities in the north. I'm from the north. I understand, like, it's shit up there. There's no jobs. You have to come down. You have to move. You have to move from your locality. You have to move from your communities. We need to create jobs within our communities. We need to create local economies, sustainable economies, and we need to move away from this idea of constant growth every year, growth obsession. It's bullshit, and it doesn't fucking work.
You're right.
I think in regards to the Remain and Leave, I think of course a lot of people were swayed by the mainstream racist Leave campaign, but for a lot of people it was simply a case of being put off by the Remain campaign. That their bottom line was basically, yeah, we've got problems, but leave it up to us, the people in suits who have constantly betrayed you and let you down. Leave it up to us to fix the imperfections or face uncertainty. And to the people who live every day with uncertainty, not knowing whether they'll make rent that month, not knowing whether they'll end up on the streets, that's a complete insult. It's disgusting. And they heard both campaigns saying this is a chance for change, and they took it because what have they got to lose? We've got to give them something. Yes. That's what we have to do.
No, I just want to say, I do agree with the point about, obviously listening to people's opinions, but I think there's a level to which, within the Brexit as well, you are reducing people's agencies by being they were, manipulated by the sun or whatever. We live in, a capitalist, patriarchal, racist society, which makes, those kind of views really inevitable. So I think there does need to be, a certain amount of focus on, structural change, because I think the more that we get bogged down into, individuals being kind of, disillusioned or uneducated, the more that we're just fucking not you person, just mean generally, obviously. But yeah, I just think that that is something massively that we need to focus on structurally.
I was going to say, this is why I think you need to actually engage with people that you don't agree with, because that really fucked me off when the result of the referendum came out. I worked in a university at the time, so I was surrounded by liberal academics, and they were all just slagging him off and saying they were racist and uneducated. There's no fucking way that 17 million people are racist and uneducated. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. And no one that didn't go to university is uneducated. It's not true.
We have a new guy sat at the table. I'm just going to introduce him. What's your name?
Ali.
You got anything you'd like to say so far?
Not right now.
When you feel free to speak, just put your hand up and I'll come to you. Right.
I mean, I'm just super curious. Did anyone here vote leave? Does anyone want to? No? No one listening voted leave.
Did you?
Maybe.
Okay. Do you want to tell people?
I mean, I was just really uncomfortable being part of what felt like this very neoliberal institution in which people in the UK had very little say over what happened, over what was happening. You know? It wasn't just in the UK, it was in places like Greece, it was in places in Denmark, where people in Denmark literally rejected the EU, and a year later, the government turned around and joined the EU anyway. I'm just really uncomfortable with that, you know? We need to be pushing power down rather than pushing power all the way up as much as we can.
I was too young to vote during the referendum, obviously not mature enough to know what I thought. But I would have voted leave. And I do find it patronising how so many Remainers think that it was only the Leave voters who didn't know what they were voting for. And I do think Corbyn would generally supported Leave, or was at least somewhat anti-EU. And I think there's legitimate arguments for both sides, and I don't blame anyone for voting Remain because it was an anti-racist view. So
I just think both sides need to acknowledge that there was misinformation on both mainstream campaigns. They were totally both disgusting.
Has anyone got long skin? Anyone? Has anyone got long skin? Long Rizzler? Anyone? Have you? Has anyone got one? Have you got one? Can I have one? I beg someone gives me a long Rizzler.
What do you reckon he might?
What? He mad? Fucking hell. Freezing mad loony pie, obviously. But he's got a, yeah, it's alright. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? So the conversation seems to have drifted. Yeah.
That's Talkaoke. That's what it does.
From how to build a campaign to Brexit. So, are we all happy continuing to discuss Brexit? Okay.
Absolutely. Like, you know, I was totally on the fence up until the last minute whether I should vote Leave or Remain, because the fact is the EU isn't this benevolent creation that does all good. Like, look what it's done to Greece. You know, it elected a genuinely socialist government that only wanted incremental changes to the crippling austerity that was imposed upon it, but no, they didn't. They destroyed Greece, and it's like 40% youth unemployment rate. That's no way to like run a democratic institution. So we have to be wary about it. The only thing that swayed me to Remain was Yanis Varoufakis himself, the ex-finance minister of Greece, who said we need to stay within it to try to reform it. And, you know, but it's a difficult debate, and we shouldn't polarize this debate into deplorables and into the people who are enlightened, because that's just bullshit. That's bullshit, because nobody knows how it's really going to turn out. Nobody understands the global financial markets. It's fucking magic. It's black magic, and no one knows what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, you talk about reform, but I just don't see how that's going to happen. I mean, how long did David Cameron, I know a Tory Prime Minister, try and help reform the EU? How well did that go? I mean, they ended up in a rowboat and it didn't go very well at all.
Yeah, the difficulty in these situations is to, like you said, sir, is to like really understand these economic systems. Like we were chatting at the housing chat earlier, like, you know, you can speak a certain justice or you can understand a certain perspective, but like the reality is it is embedded at a policy ratio, and we can chat as much as we want and we can all agree with each other, but like, you know, it is like, and I was at the climate change chat this morning, and it was like, well, these companies are dealing with negative equity and they can dissolve as much as they please, and it is difficult when we realise that like systems can come and go, but we don't all understand it. I don't claim to be a specialist on global politics. I have my opinions, and like, you know, where's our specialist on this shit? This guy pass the mic to this man.
On the mic, climate change, tell us what's going on.
I have no strong feelings on anything that was just discussed. I'm really not sure why the microphone was directed towards me.
Climate change.
Yeah, but we weren't really talking about that.
You don't have to talk if you sit down, just point that out. But, you know, I think the Leave or Remain question is obviously the wrong question. It's a stupid, really, really stupid question. I think we have to acknowledge this, that it's a meaningless question in a way.
That's the trouble. The people who picked the question had their own interests at heart. You know, there is a reason why that was the question, and there was resistance to the question being anything else.
I think there's a difference between being anti-EU and choosing to vote Brexit, because voting Brexit in the face of the campaign that was so xenophobic and so racist. No, I know, but those who voted Lexit, right? I think that is irresponsible. I think that's irresponsible, because the campaign was buying into something, and it was justifying something that was so xenophobic and so racist.
We've had some controversy there, saying the Lexit vote was irresponsible.
it's not irresponsible with them. This is the problem with that question, is that it didn't allow for any sort of nuance, did it? So all you could do was answer the question on the ballot paper honestly. Do you want to say it or do you want to leave? Like, you just answer it honestly, don't you? So it didn't allow for any like actual context or nuance.
And I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's why the referendum was such an awful way to ask that question, because there's so much nuance behind it. But I think that when you are asked that question, you have got to think about what the implications are for what you're voting for. And in that situation, when it was Brexit, which was the campaign behind it was so racist and it was so xenophobic, voting for that, in my view, is an irresponsible thing to do. There was no chance for there to be nuance to it, and there should be nuance to it, but there wasn't in a referendum. There's never going to be.
You say it's like yes or no. What other fucking options? What other options do you want? Do you know what I mean? It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no question. You can't have a 60-40 for.
I think, like, very practically in the actual referendum, it was a choice between voting to remain and voting to hand the process of leaving the EU into a government that we already knew was racist. Because, well, yeah, absolutely. I hate the EU. It's a horrible, bureaucratic, bourgeois, like, undemocratic institution. I hate it as much as anyone. But I think that European unity is essential, and when I listen to the people who I sort of trust on this at the moment, which is people like Yanis Varoufakis, they're saying that we need a unified movement within the EU, a sort of insurgent movement to really radicalise and, like, from inside push ours in a really radical way. So not like let's just like remain and sort of like fuck around in like, but. And in terms of that, like, yes, no, leave question, I think we're good on language, man. I think, like, it's all right. Like, we were choosing a vote to leave was a vote to hand the process of leaving the EU into the hands of a government that we knew they had already sent go-home vans around, like, primarily BAME neighbourhoods. We knew they were racist. Like, it was a really dangerous thing to do, and I respect the Lexit view and I share it, but it was like there's got to be a certain level of pragmatism. I'm an idealist, but there's got to be some pragmatism in there, and I think in context it was like, yeah.
But then I would argue, is that truly democratic? Because I have like a bit of an issue with this idea of tactical voting, because I feel like you're not actually voting for what you think. And isn't that the point of democracy? Is that it gives you a chance to express your opinion as an individual?
I'm actually from Scotland, and fucking when in the referendum, I went up to Edinburgh, where I'm from, to be there whilst the day of the vote. It was like 24-hour pubs, crazy, and it honestly felt like an entire nation just being like taken to bits. It was very much like allegiances towards whatever you want. On this evening, crazy, like everyone was like, right, what are you, yes or no? I think that's something that people forget about. It's like Scotland almost just left. That could have very almost happened. It very almost did happen. But that was really crazy. That was really worrying, because it was like, man, like we could have lost like a very big part of Britain, and the whole landscape could have changed, man. Brexit would have been different. Everything would have been different. It was really scary, and it was like when they voted no, it was like, yeah, like. You can't divide and conquer, and if you're going to divide up Britain like that, it was gnarly, man. It was gnarly. You weren't there, man. It was gnarly. It was gnarly, man. It was gnarly.
Just in reference to like tactical voting and stuff, I think the point is you have to be tactical, because like when you're voting yes for something, it's not under your own terms, it's under somebody else's terms. So it is so much more nuanced than just being like, yeah, wicked, I'll leave. It's like you're now basically giving yourself over to like some of the worst people, like essentially fascists, who are then going to determine like what that is. It's going to happen from there. But yeah.
Lucy Parsonson, a famous American anarchist, once said, if voting made a difference, they'd make it illegal. And I totally agree with that. However, I have to point out that throughout history, well, yeah, hold your applause. Throughout history, voting has been made illegal. And yeah, if you vote a certain way, if you vote for the left, then the rich will certainly try and change that. I agree with her quote, don't be fooled, the rich will never allow you to vote away their wealth. But I think voting can make a big difference and create enough turbulence to create an opportunity to overthrow and redistribute the wealth. And also, just on Scotland, this is a bit of a tangent. I'm not sure why so many people on the left struggle or disagree with Scottish independence. I think it's great. I think better for the Scottish people and better for the international community, who will suffer less at the hands of the British, who will become less powerful.
Oh no, you're right there in the middle. You're having fun. What is a nation? This is the thing. It's like, do we identify with this one island, with the two islands? Do we identify with this little patch next to the Atlantic? To me, it's all kind of abstract and arbitrary whether we want to be part of Scotland, part of Britain, part of the Europe. When we're just people.
Can I change the subject? So we're all talking about Brexit. Nothing's ever going to change as much as we talk about Brexit. What I'd like to know is, should we get rid of the royal family? Or what is the point in having someone that has a fucking McDonald's in Paraguay, that earns more than any of the rest of us, that doesn't pay tax? They're probably voted to leave as well. Can we get rid of them? Will we lose tourism? Is that the question? You up with pillars.
As happens. Hang on. As happens quite often with Talkaoke, the subject's changed. They're all fucking shape-shifting lizards.
How are we going to do that? We're going to do the Romanov thing, innit? We'll take to the basement and shoot them all. How's that going to work? How do we get rid of the royal family? You know what I mean? It's so integrated, mate. How are we going to do that? How do we do it? Wait.
My question isn't how you get rid of them. My question is, why should someone by their birth be better than you in every way? Absolutely. So it's 2018. You stop putting your faith in people that are born above you. You stop putting faith in people that are born with 30,000 in their bank account as birth. How do you do it? You get rid of private health, you get rid of private education, you get rid of everything else and make everybody on the same level. Let people make their own path. That's
So, two questions there. Do we want to get rid of the royal family? And if so, how do we do it?
I feel like everyone hates the monarchy here, no? We don't need to discuss it.
I know this goes against the whole Clause 4 thing, but I think we've got a brand there that we're not exploiting the full value of. That brand should actually be floated on the stock exchange. We actually need to privatise the royal family and really make the most of the brand value. I would buy shares in the royal family. Then just think the money you can make endorsing all kinds of products, opening supermarkets. We're not really using that.
Controversial opinion, Mikey.
We could just put them in the zoo.
Anybody else want to comment on the?
I think you haven't taken it far enough. I think you need to make them compete. If it's going to be really capitalistic, then you have to make it that only those that bring in the most tourism, and if they don't bring in enough, of course they have to be got rid of, etc.
Final thought before you go.
Final thought is that just look around you, man. Just try and embrace it, and like, I don't know, like maybe I'm just a bit lean now. Just like shout it, like, just like fucking be positive.
My name's Louis. Can I make a point about the royal family? It's almost a point that they're irrelevant. I feel like we're attacking the wrong people. I feel that they're so outdated that it's almost beyond the point of relevance to be speaking about. And that the facts are that, like, if you're looking at the things that are really damaging the country, we're talking about like CEOs and supermarket bosses and people who are, shopping centres and all the things that are breaking apart communities and stopping us all come together and speak together as just a people. I almost feel like the royal family are beyond the point of really being relevant.
So do we agree with Louis? Are the royal family relevant to anybody?
So you're saying like as opposed to people that haven't worked for their job or position all their life and we pay for their entire fund, as opposed to people that do. So people that start early, grind up all the way through, become the royal family who do nothing apart from visit foreign. No. So as the royal family.
Right, calm down. Calm debate. That's all we want. No fighting. Right. We're discussing the royal family, whether we should get rid of them, whether they're relevant, what we should do with them. Do you want to comment?
Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller.
What's your name?
Gary. Look, more people visit the Palace of Versailles than they do Buckingham Palace. Maybe we should just chop their heads off.
It's a great idea. Right, so we need a new topic debate now. A new change of subject. None of us like the monarchy. You put your hand up. Would you like to change the subject?
Let's change the subject right now. Let's talk about what happens. Are we ready for this? Let's talk about what happens when you become 85, 90, even 70 years old and you get put in a care home. Your family abandon you pretty much, and you get looked after by people that are being paid minimum wage by apparently immigrants stealing our jobs. There's a lot of complications going on here now. The people's care, when you get older, you need amazing care from people, but people are getting paid minimum wage to work in a care home, so people are taking these jobs, desperate people in the need of jobs, they don't even care what they're doing, and the most vulnerable people are getting treated like shit sometimes, and it's absolutely fucking disgusting. So that's a topic that you might want to talk about, minimum wage, something like that, because I think that sort of industry should be qualifications, something that comes from the heart. Xavier.
As you can see, Xavier, that's a popular subject choice. What's your name?
Connor. Absolutely amazing subject to raise. This Monday, like 7 o'clock, Uslim Onaran is going to be giving a presentation on this subject. She describes giving care as like an investment. We should be investing in carers because that's what keeps society going. Thank you so much, Ray.
Anybody else?
I think there needs to be more union recognition in the care sector. That's a big issue that trade unions aren't recognised. There's a lot of carers who actually generally care for the people they're looking after, but the lack of union recognition is causing all sorts of problems, both for the workers and for the people they're caring for.
Brilliant, yeah. This is Talkaoke. If you can see an empty chair, sit in it and engage in the debate and discussion. Nobody wants to comment?
Well, I mean, I think the issue is about more about care than about money, really. And I think we live in a world where care, you can't really monetize care. You can't. Caring is not a job. Caring is a feeling. And the issue is, I suppose, that families don't have time to care for their older people or communities. So that is then delegated out to minimum wage workers.
Hi, I'm Alex. I mean, not to completely disagree with you, but if people who directly know and care about people who are in need of care are unable because of their time or whatever else demands to care for those people, surely there is a monetary value attached to the people that therefore have to care for them. Because if you're getting minimum wage workers to care for them, the reality is those people have other demands on their life as well. Like you can attach a monetary value in the sense that if you pay people well to care, they're more likely to have the time and resources and ability to care for people who need care. Like it should be a valued. It should definitely be a valued.
Can I add one thing quickly?
Yeah, go cut in, Connor.
To a certain extent, we should be working towards parity of esteem. Okay, caring comes from the heart. Caring's about family, but there is a time constraint in being a carer, and to survive under current conditions, you need a wage in order to do that.
Well, I used to work in the NHS, and it's a lot more of a meaningful job than the other low-paid jobs that you can do. But I think that in a way you're kind of self-subsidising through meaning your actual. If that makes sense, I don't know really what I'm saying, but it's kind of like it's almost the fact that it is meaningful means that you're willing to do it for such little money.
So capitalism is like really screwing people with a heart who care. You know what I mean? By paying them not as much as they should.
So it's like, it's just really depressing how often people are exploited for, like, if you're willing to do it because you love doing it, like being in the NHS, they'll screw you by paying you less, because it's like, well, we'll know you do it for minimum wage or maybe a tiny bit more, despite the fact you're doing something that has such societal good. Like, that has no relevance. It doesn't matter if you're being like a surgeon or, you know, like, it doesn't matter. If you're willing to do it for less, then they'll fuck you and they'll just pay you less.
I agree. I want to add to that. Like, I completely agree with what you just said. Like, the reality is the market, whatever the fuck that means, completely values pointless and pointless tasks that have nothing to do with society or value to society. I work as in a law firm and I do mainly insurance work. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a lackey. But I get paid like double what my previous flatmate, who was a carer, got paid. And she was on a 0 hours contract doing ad hoc care. The reason she did that is because she genuinely cared and wanted to do that job. She got punished for it by getting half the wage that I get for doing a job I hate. Like, it's exactly what you say. You get punished for caring. It's not even a case of like motivating people to care. You're punishing carers by paying them minimum wage.
So why does compassion? Why is it undervalued? Why does it get punished?
So my point was a digression, so I can.
I have an idea. Maybe it's because if your loved one suffers from dementia, to live in a residential care home, it costs about £3,000 a month if they're in a good care home per resident. Per person, it's about £2,000 to £3,000 per month. It's ridiculous, and the people at the top are making so much money. Obviously, the workers are getting a very small cut here. And if you opt in to qualify higher and become a senior carer just to get a tiny bit more, you have to study in your spare time for free as part of your apprentice. You do not get paid to study, and they are raking the money in at the top. And they're also, the educators who provide the care workers with an extra qualification to gain that little bit more money, they're raking it in as well. They're getting so much money from the care homes at the top. So it's a huge, massive money-making industry.
Look, the only thing I have to say about this is, Green Army!
Yeah, my name's Layla. Yeah, I mean, first of all, compassion is obviously incompatible with capitalism anyway. But obviously, compassion is undervalued more for some groups than others. And I guess I was just thinking about that very basic idea of like, which workers compassion, yeah, lads. But like, which workers built the NHS? And those were largely migrant workers who built the NHS when they first arrived here. And that basic compassion is so undervalued. And it just seems like that runs through the health system historically, but also currently. And so compassion, inconsistent with capitalism then and now. And then it so disproportionately affects, black and ethnic minority groups, and especially migrant groups, when actually it's their work that we depend most on through the health system. Yeah.
So, minimum wage, by definition of the term, is like a good idea. Like that should be the minimum that people get paid, and you can talk about where that line is. But minimum wage should be minimum wage. But because we live in a capitalist society that is all about profit, it's not minimum wage. It's like, oh, that's what we'll pay people. That's what we have to pay people. So we'll just pay people that. Unless they're really educated, then we'll pay them more. But that's not what minimum wage should be. It should be the absolute bottom line, and most jobs should be above that. It's not just what people's wage should be. But we live in a society where, like a care home, you have to pay a lot to have someone in care, and they pay minimum wage. So that is in our system, that is a good business model because there's shitloads of profit. But that profit can't be above people. But how the fuck do you change that?
Hi, I'm Lucy from Los Angeles. So I think I want to piggyback on both your idea that compassion isn't compatible with a capitalistic system, but also what you just mentioned in terms of what's the solution to that. So here's the thing. You're right. It has turned to the point where our capitalistic system does not value compassion because they haven't quite figured out, or they took that entirely out of the system in terms of the bottom line being profit and greed being the ultimate value that then everybody was aspiring to. So what we have seen, at least in the United States, is that once you started getting people elected and into the system in order to reform it, that you then started to inject processes that are compatible with compassion. So for example, benefit corporations, which are now a thing, right? So where now you can actually, to your stockholders and to the people who are investing in your company, you no longer have to be entirely and 100% accountable to just profit, right? So now these folks have the ability, they have the leverage, they have the leeway to say, no, a certain percentage of our company is actually based on social good. A certain amount of our profits are going to be reinvested into our employees. We are going to incorporate a co-op model. We are going to reinvest in our community, and we are going to build out our community from the bottom upwards, right? And that was something that is fairly newer and hasn't necessarily been something that anyone had even thought of in the past. So I see those types of things as frankly progress, but also a way in which we start to inject these values of compassion and investment and really wealth sharing, frankly, right, as a value that is now going back into a system that, we're essentially stuck with. I don't know that we're ever going to entirely get rid of capitalism, but we can certainly improve it.
Social enterprise and co-ops.
what we have to be working towards is removing the profit motive. I mean, we're all agreed on this basically, out of basic goods and services. And we talked about social care, healthcare, also applies to the criminal justice system in America, and in England, increasing the education system as well. It's across the board, privatisation, cut and slash, deregulation, basically.
I just kind of have a general point about I think people in the US tend to be more favourable of capitalism because they don't see. They kind of think that. So I watch a ton of US politics shows and stuff, and they typically seem to think that capitalism's fine, but it's run off the rails a little bit, and that the problems aren't endemic and that they're avoidable. And I think a lot of other people are like, no, no matter, if you let it run, it will self-destruct and destroy everything, basically, and be terrible. But the US kind of has seen such glory from capitalism that they haven't seen the shit yet, and they kind of are very, I don't know. It was just a response as to why I think people are very fond of capitalism in the US. They're much nearer to the glory kind of thing.
I had a very quick point in regards to the discussion of capitalism and compassion. It's interesting because within a capitalist society we are still human and every single person still has compassion within them, and it's interesting to see the ways in which compassion is warped and turned into a consumer product. So charities become businesses where they try and sell compassion and appeal to people's compassion to gain donations, and I think it's and everybody still in the head believes that they're human and they're good and they still have compassion, but they're trying to operate within a system which is inherently uncompassionate.
I just want to this point over here about capitalism. Jeremy Corbyn is a capitalist. He wants to maintain the capitalist system. It's a very different kind of capitalism to Donald Trump's capitalism or Theresa May or Boris Johnson. And so there is a lot of leeway within capitalism about how compassionate you can be.
This is an argument me and my girlfriend have all the time because she's a revolutionary socialist and I'm a reformist socialist.
I just wanted to make a small point about the US and capitalism, just to come back to that, and I know there's someone from the US who would probably make it better, but I just wanted to say I think it's too easy to believe that just because especially cities in the US seem as if they've kind of entered this end of ultimate capitalism stage, that we don't actually have things to learn from them in the way that they've dealt with capitalism. Even if the healthcare system and that stage of capitalism it's in the US has basically destroyed to some extent the US, you can see the public library system in New York, where I lived for a few years, being more invested in than any time in the last 100 years. Ours is being destroyed piece by piece, and we can see it. So I'm not trying to defend capitalism or the US necessarily. I just mean to say that the UK has this amazing way of saying, okay, we have the biggest left-wing movement in Europe, let's have fun. Actually, the US can teach us a lot about how to fight back. Its Black Lives Matter movements have shown us how to try and really build an anti-racist movement. We have so much to learn from them, and we shouldn't, capitalism might be at its kind of peak there, but it is here too. They're just it's different, right?
Now, you're gonna behave.
I just want to say one thing.
No, I mean, look, I entirely agree. I think that look, there's no perfect system. There just isn't. And to your point, you're right. Jeremy Corbyn is a capitalist, right? You know, at the end of the day, it is about how do we go about mobilizing and how do we go about leveraging our individual learnings, both as international friends and allies, but also as movements, because I'm very active in the progressive movement. I was recently a founding board member of Our Revolution, which is the organization that Bernie Sanders established after his presidential loss. And so it really is about how do we figure out how to infiltrate the various systems under which we're operating, both economic and political, and learn from each other's movements in terms of what's being more effective and what's not, right? And you know, ultimately, I think that's what we can't give up. We can't simply say, you know, I mean, when I sat down here, I heard a lot of complaints, valid ones, and all of the things that are wrong. And I think one of the things that we get into a lot in our movements are that we talk a lot about what's wrong, but don't necessarily, as you pointed out, really start to focus on what the solutions are, you know? And we are not always going to agree on what those solutions are entirely, but I'm certainly one who says that as long as we are moving forward, as long as we are making, and I'm not talking about incremental progress, I'm not talking about the Hillary Clinton neoliberal progress, I'm talking about real substantive change to our systems that uplift the oppressed and those who have truly been dejected by these systems historically. When we start to make those kinds of changes, I'm okay with making incremental changes that truly change lives.
Yeah, and adding to that, I think that we shouldn't be actually scared to use some of the techniques that has consolidated capitalism in our psyche. You know, we should actually start to use the marketing techniques, the sociology, psychology, all that amazing scientific progression. We need to actually not take such a moral high ground and, you know, not use it because it's got a capitalist label. We need to start using that for our own ends. I totally agree with that, yeah.
Hey, yeah, so I appreciate my earlier comments may have been kind of not very well said, and like I'm not in any way kind of saying that people from the US are any less anti-capitalist. My only point was saying that it worries me about how important the US is in the world stage, and you know they are the world superpower. So if we're to try and convince a society of the ills of capitalism, frankly, like, you know, if I could choose between the UK and the US, I wouldn't hesitate for a second, right? If I could transform the US, I would do it in a heartbeat. But that's not to say that in any way, like, Black Lives Matter, Bernie Sanders, amazing, of course.
So, surprisingly, for a bunch of socialists, we're talking about changing the world again.
This might be a naive understanding, but my understanding of a company that's got shareholders and that sort of thing has got a legal obligation to prioritise profit. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding. So if I'm wrong, that's fine. If that's correct, I'm really interested to know what's happening with this is what you were talking about that can allow things to happen that go against profit, because I can't understand how it can work.
No, you're entirely correct. I'm also a lawyer, so yes, in terms of a corporation and if it's been vested, etc., it's trading, etc. Yes, you have a fiscal and fiduciary duty to your shareholders. However, in the United States, by progressive and democratic elected officials, we started to create a systemic change state by state that allowed for benefit corporations. And what the benefit corporations do is that you no longer have a single sole duty to your shareholders to create profit. You can actually include community investment as a form of revenue. So it shields you from investor lawsuits, so that if you're not turning the profit that you, for example, said that you would, as long as you show that you were doing community investment, then you are shielded from shareholder suits and you can invest more of your money in the community.
So, unfortunately, time has come to an end. But it's not all terrible news, because everybody gets a last thought all the way around the table, even if it's your first thought. And I've been here for about a couple of hours now, and the overall theme has been how to change the world. So give us a very brief final comment, each of you.
My first and last comment would be unite under Labour, Labour victory all the way.
Well, it was a follow-up to the lady's point about B Corps, and in the UK we have social enterprise. Yeah, like community interest companies. And I don't know if that's a way to change the world. I think it's a way to change the world, and it's a good bridgehead in the short term anyway.
I have no ideas. Green away!
Yes, sir. Are you his mate?
I have no idea what I'm talking about really, but I big up the Labour Party, you know. I'm saying, don't forget about the people on benefits. We've had a terrible tendency over last year's Paul Corbyn to demonise people on benefits. I got made redundant a few years ago. I look after my disabled mother, and I've seen the demonisation and what it does to people. We need to start looking out for people on benefits. Start bigging up the welfare states. Come on everybody, big up the welfare state. Thank you.
Last final thought is that this table is amazing. You should actually get everyone together, take everyone's email addresses, keep a network going, do this again, start a little TV channel, YouTube, get everyone involved.
Well, there is actually a YouTube channel. Just look for the People Speak, or VEPS, THEPSNET, VEPSNet.
My final word is, on behalf of the United States, we are deeply ashamed of Donald Trump, and we apologize for him.
I thought this lady's idea about reforming corporate governance as a key issue is, I mean, it's not maybe something that's the most popular in this tent, you know, but it's something we have to deal with. It's the reality. We do not have another option available. We do not have a legitimate transition to something else, as he put it. So I really think we need to incorporate this new type of pushing against Greenspan's idea of profit only, you know, and if we can start to do that, then we can start to channel the energy of people who are in powerful positions, starting to do and to channel their investments into something more positive.
I think when it comes to you and your girlfriend, I'm on your side, because I think any kind of change that we can make for people that helps people's lives, great, revolution is great, but let's just make people's lives better. And when they've got that belief that things can change, then that will grow, and more belief will make more change.
I enjoyed that.
Let's give a massive round of applause for Andy, first time in the middle. Like a duck to water.